So I got this like Lego Derek Jeter, but it's not really Lego. It's just called OYO. So we got the Jeter. Now we just need the Yankee Stadium Lego. Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. Well, DJ LeMahieu and Clark Schmidt inch close to joining the team. We'll kind of give you an update on this rehab progress and their kind of timeline when they'll be able to join the big club and contribute to the 2025 season. And of course, we'll just look at the Yankees here. Some of the Yankees early on, I know early on in the season, to go crazy, but we'll kind of go see which players are hitting hot and which players are hitting not. And of course, we have to mention Trent Grisham, who I'm sure he's been getting a lot of rave reviews lately with the playing time to get him some of the production he's doing. But of course, we'll talk a little bit of the negativity, which is mainly so far at this point right now has been the Yankees starting pitching, not getting much length there. So we'll kind of focus on that and how it affects the bullpen. So a lot of good stuff for you. And if you're that one DJ LeMahieu fan that's still out there and you're looking forward to the machine, this could be your episode. So before we get started, though, make sure you subscribe to the audio version podcast of the show, Section 420 Talkin Yankees, wherever you get your favorite podcast. Search for it, find it, and of course on YouTube as well. Search Section 420 Talkin Yankees. Search it, find it, subscribe, get all the stuff. So we all know the story with DJ LeMahieu. Past couple of seasons, both injury-wise and production have not been good for him. But of course, the Yankees still locked into that contract, which still has this year and another year left on it. So you can't just cut the guy like they do with Aaron Hicks. So obviously you have to fight through his hopes. Hopefully he could find it, so to speak, and keep himself healthy. And that's the way it was coming into this 2025 season. But of course, he got injured in spring, so obviously he was shut down a little bit. And now finally, seemed like he's on his way back. So the plan was to join the Yankees as they played in Detroit, do some workouts with the team, and if all well with that, he would then start a rehab assignment the Friday after that series, and then you would figure like a little minor league stint there for a couple of games, and then guess what? He feels like he's up to speed. He will rejoin the team. So it's good news, positive for the Yankees just to have him as an option. Obviously you look at him as more competing with Oswaldo Cabrera at third base, who right now has been doing an okay job. Say he's been gangbusters, but he's been all right. But if you look, at that Pittsburgh series, Cabrera was very instrumental in that, had a big influence in there as well. So, is he taking the job and held on to it with a tight grip? No. Can DJ LeMahieu come in and take playing time from him and maybe win out the job and win some most? But it's a possibility. But that's where you see really this was going more for third base. Obviously, first base locked down by Paul Goldschmidt, and Goldschmidt and obviously DJ both righty hitters there. So I don't see a situation where you're gonna sit Goldschmidt for DJ there on the matchups. Only time you're gonna sit Goldschmidt maybe if you plan on maybe playing Ben Rice at first base, who's if you want a left-handed bat in there. So again, DJ's opportunity to get any playing time is probably going to be with at third base. So and then again, he does have an opportunity there because Cabrera's been okay, he's been nice, he's been holding down the fort, but he hasn't taken a stranglehold on it the way Paul Goldschmidt has, and we'll go through some of his numbers later. Just the way he's hitting right now, you wouldn't want to take Goldschmidt out of your lineup there. So we'll see what happens there at third base. And another significant piece the Yankees look forward to getting back, and that is, of course, Clark Schmidt there for the starting rotation. Now, of course, we know the Yankee rotation has been just hammered by injuries right before the season started because, Garrett Cole going down with the Tommy John. He's done for the season. Luis Gil with his lat injury, which, again, we don't know exactly when it's coming back, but again, the projection of that could be somewhere in June, July there. So what it did was, it created some opportunities, for some guys such as Will Warren, such as Carlos Carrasco, but also kind of gave the Yankees an opportunity to sort of sideline the whole Stroman thing where he wants to be in the starting rotation or nothing. Well, now the Yankees are going to have to make a choice relatively soon with Clark Schmidt because he did have one rehab start ready now. That was on April 5th in Double-A Somerset. Now in the game, he did have 7 Ks in 3 1/3 inning there. Now the plan for him is to have one more start after that, and then after that, if everything all goes well and shiny, no injuries and no hurt, anything like that, then he'll be able to rejoin the club there. But now the Yankees have to make a decision on the starting 5 rotation. You're gonna have to bounce either Carrasco or Will Warren, which the two of them haven't exactly been gangbusters to start the season. I mean, of the two of them, maybe Carrasco's been a little bit better, but not significantly better there. So If you want to look at that, maybe that's the case where you're looking at maybe Will Warren's the odd man out, where either you're just going to put him as a long reliever or send him back to send him down to AAA and just let him, sort of lengthen out his arm there, just so when you do have to bring him back some time, he'll still be a starter there, and that's somebody you have to stretch out a little bit there. So that could be one option. Or the other option is this with Carlos Carrasco, since you're not really paying him a lot of money, is this DFA him or maybe even send him down to AAA if he would accept the assignment. I don't know if he'll do that there, so hard to tell. But again, right now at this very second, if I gotta say who's the odd man out right now, probably a little bit more than Will Warren there, but again, this kind of remains to be seen. Now, the whole thing with Stroman, now he as well hasn't exactly been super impressive, at least going lengthwise for the Yankees. And again, we'll kind of address this probably very shortly. There's been a problem with most of the Yankee starters, but Stroman exactly himself again hasn't been very impressive too. But you're paying a significant amount of money. He's someone who is a bona fide established starter there. So unless he's terrible, I just don't think really at the point you're going to bounce him out of the starting rotation. So if one of them goes, Will Warren and Carrasco, it's going to be one of those two. And just again, based on very early so far this season, it just seems like Carrasco's just been a little bit better. Again, he hasn't been great, but a little bit better than Will Warren right now. Again, Will Warren a little disappointed there because he did have a really good spring, but look, you had to expect this with both Will Warren and Carrasco. When you're pitching in spring training, again, different competition. You sometimes hitters that are going to probably be in AA or AAA there, and sometimes hitters maybe not necessarily looking to maybe even hit your pitch. Maybe they want to stand there in the batter's box and just look at pitches and just get used to picking up balls there. So you might have gotten outs and strikeouts you normally would have gotten in once you hit the regular season there. So again, the good numbers that Carrasco and Will Warren had in spring training, shouldn't be shocked that that's not as good as to start the season. A little disappointing there because you think it was something to be built upon there. So once Schmidt does come back there, which Schmidt definitely, I think you would put a starter over those two there. Probably, I would have to guess Will Warren might be the odd man out. And of course, now mentioning all the pitching, this has kind of been the Yankees' kind of a little bit problem, at least the start of the season. I don't say it's a problem yet because it's just so early. You want to go nuts with that, but that's mainly the starting rotation and getting length out of these starters and really good quality starts, which really haven't been there for the Yankees. I mean, right now, if you just look at all the starts, at least up to this point, as I'm saying, is you maybe have to look at Carlos Rodon's first start opening day at Yankee Stadium there, where he was pretty good. I know he had a base loaded situation. They had to get the bullpen to get out of that. But overall, you'd say that was a good quality start for him for just the amount of runs he gave up, which was only about, I think, one earned run off the solo home run. And they gave the Yankees 6 innings there. But really, since that, the Yankee starting rotation has not been good. Even the new Max Fried, not really impressive there. Now, in his situation, I give him cut him a little bit slack because one of the games was the second one of the year. There was the 20-9 blowout against the Brewers, where you kind of sit on the bench there, and the Yankees just hit home runs left and right there, and you kind of get a little you get cold a little bit, and you have to go back in the game and throw strikes. So I cut him a little slack on that one. Even the Pittsburgh game as well, the Yankees started to pack it on in terms of the offense, and maybe kind of you lose it a little bit because your team's scoring runs, you're sitting on the bench for a long time. So, but again, overall, he hasn't been that impressive. And Carlos Rodon, he's been giving the Yankees innings, so that's a good point. But he's been getting, he had 2 starts after the first one. He's gotten bombed, and the Yankees really had no shot out of the gate there. So you couple that with just the fact with some of the people I mentioned before. Stroman hasn't given you that much length. Will Warren and Carrasco haven't given you the type of length you really need there, and the Yankees have to be dipping into the bullpen very early on, and that's why you actually been seeing a lot of bullpen moves up and down with guys coming in and out, which also addresses that. So you're seeing kind of the effects a little bit of not having Garrett Cole, of not having Luis Gil, and again, kind of relying on some of your bottom 3 there, like Stroman, Will Warren, and Carrasco, who normally you just have one of those guys in your rotation as your number 5 guy, and if they don't give that much length, who cares? But then the fact that at least at the start of the season, you're depending on all 3 of those guys, and all 3 of those guys aren't giving you much length there, you can see again how that's problematic, and then you have to dip it into your bullpen early, puts a strain on them, and then the whole thing kind of collapses there. So something the Yankees have to deal with now. Should get a little bit better, that the fact that Clark Schmidt's going to join the rotation. I think he'll be more competent there. But again, you still have to get more out of someone like Stroman, that if you do decide to keep him in there, for his wishes, and not have to worry about him complaining and nagging about going to the bullpen there. But if Stroman's going to be in the rotation, he has to pull his weight there and give you more than 3 1/3 inning or 4 1/3 inning there. I mean, he's going to have to go 6 or 7 innings there. Now, very early on in the season, you don't really stretch out your starters that much there. So again, cut him a little slack there. But again, this is something that the Yankees got to figure out. Mainly Rodon, I think he just has a couple of blow-ups there. He's kind of had some weird games there. I think he'll be all right. But Max Fried, again, the new arm, the big money guy that just came in here. Again, looking at him now, the importance of him really, increased just because the fact that you don't have Cole for at least the rest of the season. So put some more emphasis on him to perform well. He has to be a little bit better than this. Actually, has to be a lot better than this. Let's give the Yankees some length so they're not always tapping into the bullpen so early. And, of course, the lack of effectiveness of the starting rotation, I mentioned, that kind of carries over into the bullpen because, again, you're tapping into them in the 4th or 5th inning when you really want to wait until maybe the 6th or 7th inning. Now, obviously, the game's different right now, but still, the Yankees have been going to the bullpen too early, and that's why you've been seeing a lot of turbulence, a lot of guys up and down there. And, of course, he's gone, but you've got to mention the poor guy, and that's, of course, Adam Ottavino. Now, the first time they bring him up, it was to get him as kind of a quick fix solution because, Devin Williams went on the paternity leave. He came back, and as soon as he came back, as we all know was going to happen, they DFA'd Adam Ottavino. But yeah, again, he faced like 5 batters. He got 3 of them out there. So whatever, small sample size, but impressive enough. And then all of a sudden, you have the situation where they send down a lefty, and of course, then it opens the door again. They call up Ottavino again. He comes up here for like a day or two. But of course, when Ian Hamilton scheduled to return to join the team in Detroit there, they decided to DFA the guy again. So poor Adam Ottavino, again, they brought him up here for like a couple of days. They dump him. They call him back. Comes up for a couple of days. They dump him there. So would be shocked if you see him back again. I don't know, 3rd time's a charm there, but that's probably the last you saw Adam Ottavino. So technically, he joined the Yankees 3 times there. So that's the story on him. But look, late in spring, he had a little good showing there, and that's why the Yankees decided to pick him up. Obviously he opted out of his deal with the Red Sox there. The Yankees gave him a shot. Again, small sample size, he's been okay, so could another team potentially pick him up during the remainder of the season? Maybe there. But 39 years old, I don't really know how much has left there, but nevertheless, goodbye. So a brief cup of coffee for the Yankees there, Adam Ottavino. But the Yankees are getting some good news. Again, it's going to take a little bit while, but you still have Scott Efros coming back at some point, and of course, maybe more in May. You'll look at Jonathan Loáisiga there. So again, the Yankees have to keep feeding some more arms into this bullpen right now, just because they've been tapping to very early. But I guess some good surprises there. Devin Williams, he hasn't got a lot of opportunity there, so I'm not going to really, say yay and nay on him just yet there. You still have a lot of season to go there. But one of the good surprises that one of the guys Cashman brought in has been Fernando Cruz. Just coming in, dominating, striking guys out. And again, this is kind of why they brought him in. The good, raw talent, which, yes, he also had a lot of walks to him, but he also had the strikeout ability. And I figure if they could fine-tune his stuff with pitching coach Matt Blake there, it seems to be paying off early there. Very dominating. If you look, one of the games in the Arizona series as well as the Pittsburgh series there, very dominating. So for the problems, some of the Yankees may have in the bullpen, which is not a lot there. Again, one of the happy surprises, one of the guys that brought in, that's Fernando Cruz. So, of course, talking about negativity, the pitching, but, of course, the bright spot for the Yankees out of the gate, of course, been the offense, and, of course, some of the crazy numbers put up, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Of course, Aaron Judge there, who's on pace to hit like 80 home runs, probably not going to do that. But one of the surprises has been Trent Grisham in the playing time he's got now. He's got the benefit of a few things of Bellinger. Initially, it was because of a sore back, so Boone kind of wanted to sit him down a little bit, especially during the start of the Pittsburgh series there, just because with all the travel, stuff like that. And then, of course, Bellinger, again, the poor guy, gets food poisoning, so again, opens the door yet again for Trent Grisham to get some at-bats there. And the time he's been playing there, he's been producing, and again, right now, at this moment there, batting average will probably go down a little bit, but still impressive very early on in the season. 379, 3 home runs. Again, had 2 home runs in that game, the Saturday game against Pittsburgh. 11 hits total, 9 RBIs, so really good out of the gate there. And last year, he did not get a ton of playing time. Again, he was kind of just a defensive replacement late in the game there. Again, he's a former Gold Glover, 2-time Gold Glover, so not shocking. That's why they wanted to use him. But offensively, didn't get to see him too much. And Boone kind of mentioned that, the two of them kind of addressed that, and he wants to try to get Grisham some more playing time in 2025. So we'll see how that all pans out. Again, the big moment, I think, last year with Grisham was that one game where he came out and the fans were chanting for Soto to pinch hit for him. But Boone stuck with him, and he ended up hitting a home run there. So that was kind of his ha-ha moment there. But he didn't really get a ton of opportunities last season there. So seemingly he's getting it now. And of course, it's going to happen in left field there with Jason Dominguez. All right, Jason Dominguez is probably going to get to start more often than not there. Again, he's been okay. I mean, I said he's been... Same thing with Cabrera there at a point there where you wouldn't consider. So Boone has been also considering starting Grisham over Dominguez in left field. But again, a lot of times, even if Dominguez goes well, of the two of them, probably Dominguez is going to be the better offensive player, so he'll probably get most of the starts in there, and then Trent Grisham will probably come in late in games as for his the defensive prowess there, because, again, you still don't really trust Dominguez fully there in left field there. So Grisham is going to get his opportunities. He'll probably get cut down a little bit this once Bellinger gets back on his feet more on a regular basis. Again, with that, I mean, he hasn't been wowzers to start the season yet, but I think he'll be much better there. And I think Dominguez, he'll start picking up a little bit. So Dominguez, so Grisham's playing time will be cut down a little bit, but not a lot, because I think Boone's going to almost automatically always go for him for defensive purposes for Dominguez in left field. So he'll probably very most likely get more at-bats in 2025 than he did in 2024. And sticking with the Yankee offense, again, should highlight some other players that have been hitting the ball well to start the season. Before I mentioned Aaron Judge there, again, obviously stats could change a little bit, but again, as of this moment right now, some impressive stats that putting up not only Judge, but some other teammates. And of course, we'll start off with Judge, the captain, hitting .341, 6 home runs already, and a total of 18 RBIs. And if you want to just go back a year ago, remember April, he stunk. He was terrible. And it wasn't really until maybe the first or second week of May where he finally started hitting. And then with all that being said, ended up with 58 home runs. Now you take this situation in 2025, where he's getting off to a really red-hot start there. And, is he going to get more than 58 home runs? It's possible. I mean, if he stays on his torrid pace, again, I don't think he's going to get 70, 80 home runs, any sort of that sort of situation like a Barry Bonds there. But could he, in fact, maybe surpass his previous 62 that he had in 2022? Maybe that could be in play. But of course, things are going well. There's going to be a period of the season where maybe he cools down a little bit, or just gets out of his swing, gets into a little bit of a funk, and has a little lull period. Possibly, but right now, you're just hearing everyone around baseball kind of just singing praises of Aaron Judge. It's always going to be Judge or Ohtani, who's the best right now. But again, a lot of people are really leaning towards Judge right now as sort of being the man right now in baseball. So he kind of got the bull by the horns. He's the Yankee captain, playing for the Yankees. All is going well for him. So again, as long as he stays healthy, and then again, I don't see him getting out of whack, out of funk. Only time we saw him really do that was a couple times obviously in the postseason. He's gonna have to answer those demons. But when he was chasing the home run the first time a couple of seasons ago, chasing the 62, we saw kind of the week or two leading up to all that. They're kind of getting out of his swing, getting out of whack, swinging at balls he would never swing at, stuff like that. There, I just don't see Aaron Judge again another year old, a little bit more mature, sort of getting into that funk there. So again, he's gonna put up a big number this season. Is it gonna be 62? Or close to that, possibly. I don't think he's going to chase the Barry Bonds 73 there. That would be kind of interesting there, but he could definitely, perhaps, potentially, if he stays on this pace, pass his previous 62 there, kind of take it from there. But some other Yankees are hitting well out of the gate, worth mentioning in terms of batting average, which, again, that's been an important thing for the Yankees past couple of seasons. Again, they have a lot of guys with low batting averages. That's been a problem with them. But right now, a lot of guys are doing well. Paul Goldschmidt at .381. Ben Rice, who again had a great spring and kind of took the DH job, the fact that Stanton's down for a while, him hitting .323. And even some of the younger guys like Cabrera, Volpe, Dominguez, all right, batting average-wise hasn't been gangbusters, but you see them contributing, especially during that Pittsburgh series there. They were responsible for a lot of those rallies there, especially the ninth inning comeback in the Sunday game. Now they ended up losing that one extra innings. But you see the young guys contributing there. So the fact that some of the big guys are putting up some good numbers there, but you also got the young scrappy, the Volpes of the world. And even he's been doing well with the home runs bat there. But the younger guys, Cabrera, Dominguez, Volpe kind of scrapping, getting some runs there, starting some rallies there. So you see this Yankee lineup there. So good potential there. Now I think they hit a little bit of reality in Detroit there, but I think a lot of that had to do with the frigid weather there. So I'll put that more than anything. Of course, Skubal is kind of tough. Guys, a Cy Young Award winner there, so you're not shocked when he shuts you down there. But the offense seems to be clicking, so that seems to be the good part so far of this Yankee team there. Bullpen okay, but again, as mentioned before, the kind of right now the little bit of Achilles heels they have is in the starting rotation. And, of course, the news quieted down a little bit right now, but, of course, the hubbub to start the season with all the Yankee home runs was the torpedo bats, and we kind of got into the last episode, so I'm not going to beat that to death. But, as mentioned before, they were in regulation, and, again, the Yankees aren't the first team to use them. Again, they've been around baseball for a while, a little bit, a couple of seasons there, so not shockingly, it's just the fact that I think to combine the fact that it's the New York Yankees, but also they have good players using them. Like Bellinger is a good player. Someone like Paul Goldschmidt's a good player. So you have good players. And look, Jazz, is he a great player? No, but we know he has a home run ability. So when those guys are cracking home runs, it's not just only because of the bat. You take the combination of the bat plus a pretty good player there, like someone like Bellinger, former MVP. You're then shocked that the balls are flying out a little bit there. But as for Commissioner Rob Manfred, he was asked to address it there, and again, he gave the answer which I would expect him to give give that no, he's all cool with it. He likes it because the offense, is good for ratings. It's good for TV. It gives the fans interest. It gives them interest in the game there. So obviously they always want offense over pitching there. So shouldn't be shocked there. And again, I mentioned before, the bat, again, it's all within the size regulations. It's just shifting the weight away. You can hit the ball to get the most pop out of it there. So it's not cheating. Again, it's been done before, so it's just because it's the New York Yankees, and you have good players, and you combine all that together. That's why it got all the attention. But really, it was kind of a non-story. And kind of the commissioner, he likes the idea, and you shouldn't be surprised there. At the end, games are more exciting when home runs are being hit versus a 1-0 pitches duel. You like those games once in a while in a certain situation, but not what you had in baseball before. Manfred had to implement a lot of rules to sort of speed the game up and kind of maybe shift the advantage more back to the hitters there. And that's why you have things like replay and so forth like that. So maybe bad strikes that benefit the pitcher probably more go to the hitter and things like that we're going to see in the future there. So obviously offense brings the ratings, it brings the numbers. So you shouldn't be shocked that Manfred was all for the torpedo bats. Now, one of the surprising stories in baseball, which I covered on the audio podcast version of Section 420 Talkin Yankees, which is why you want to be an audio podcast subscriber, get the story sooner. But nevertheless, we should address it here. Kind of affects the Yankees. I mean, even though it's not a Yankee move, but nevertheless, that's the contract extension of Vlad Guerrero Jr. to the tune of $500 million. So it's a 14-year extension. So safe to say he's probably not going anywhere for the near future. And he has a full no trade clause, so he would have to okay any sort of move that gets made there. And again, I just kind of found it a little bit puzzling because you figure a guy like that in his last year of the contract, that's the golden time that you would want to trade him off because you figure you'd get a boatload of prospects back for them. But it looks like Toronto wants to stick with him and be part of their long-term future, which, and again, it's kind of hard to judge what's Toronto's plan, what are they really doing. I mean, it always seems like they would like to rebuild, but they don't rebuild, and they kind of bring some free agents in there. So they're kind of like wandering, but I think all things being considered, it's actually best for him to be parked there if you're a Yankee or a Yankee fan and have him to sit marooned in Toronto, because I just don't see them as a club that's going to threaten the AL East anytime soon, just the way that the direction they're going. Again, I just don't see what the direction is. Obviously this season they bought in Matt Scherzer, who's hurt already. You shouldn't be shocked with that, as well as Anthony Santander. Now, look, he's a good quality outfielder, a good player there, but still, where are you going with this team? What's the future? And it's just, I just don't understand what their plan would be. Now, of course, with some of the other big names over a couple of years, especially some of the Japanese players, such as Ohtani, they tried to woo him. They brought him up there. They struck out of him, struck out on Yamamoto, and then most recently with Sasaki, also tried to get him, but he had no interest in playing for Toronto. They all went to the Dodgers because they all want to go to the Dodgers like that. But, of course, even more recently with Juan Soto, supposedly Toronto was also in on the Juan Soto sweepstakes as well. But, of course, we all know Soto ended up with the Mets in Queens there. So Toronto's probably laying around. It's like, all right, no one really wants to play here. We got all this money. What do we do with it? Guerrero's our guy. I mean, we could trade him, but I guess we'll just give him the money and throw the fans a bone there. So don't really understand the move. I don't understand what the long-term prospects of them. But as I mentioned before, if you're a Yankee fan, it's probably the best thing, other than him maybe just going to the National League or something, him to just be there. You don't want to see him playing for the Red Sox. Obviously the situation where imagine him as right-handed hitting at Fenway there, hitting balls over the Green Monster, peppering balls and doubles off the Monster there. So you don't want to see him there in Boston. And, of course, you do not want to see him teaming up with Soto in the Mets there. And, of course, given the opportunity, Stevie Cohen would have probably thrown, $500 or $600 million to bring him in there. Just have those two back-to-back. You do not want to see those two in the same lineup hitting next to each other over the next decade and have to hear that guff from Mets fans there. So almost good news that he doesn't go to the Mets. So him saying Toronto isn't the worst thing in the world there. And maybe it's kind of interesting, and we kind of mentioned here on here as well in the audio podcast, supposedly the second meeting between Cohen and Soto there, like, Soto's very concerned about who's hitting with him in the lineup. Now, afterwards, the Mets did sign a deal to bring Pete Alonso back. But I'm sure Soto would want someone like a Guerrero type to say, hey, would you be able to get this type of guy in the future there? And Cohen probably said, hey, look, if I can make it happen, make it happen. Well, now Cohen can't make it happen there. So not that that's Cohen's fault there, man. If Toronto has the rights to Guerrero, and if they want to sign him, they're going to extend him, and that's that. So it really has no bearing on Cohen there. But I'm sure Cohen was hoping Guerrero could be available at some point, whether it's during the trade deadline or just buy him out free agency, or just buy him out just like he did with Soto there and have those two in the lineup there. But now that's not an option for the Mets. But switching back for the Yankees here, would he be an option for the Yankees at some point to get to? I just don't know if they would have the interest for them. Obviously, we know at first base the deal with them right now. Paul Goldschmidt there for the year. Now, we all know he's a one-and-done rental. He's age 37. If he has a phenomenal season, maybe you consider bringing him back for yet another year after that, okay? But if you're looking for who could be a first baseman for the next 10 years there, Guerrero could be that type of guy there, just, there. But, again, I still don't think the Yankees had much interest in him. And if you just look at the Yankees recently, obviously, giving a boatload of money to Judge, obviously, and since they didn't spend all that money on Juan Soto, sprinkled around in some areas, one of them being Goldschmidt, one of them bringing Bellinger in for a season, and they'll probably, if he has a good season, pick up his option for next year. And plus now all the money paying Max Fried as well as the money paying Rodon there. So, yeah, the Yankees have the money there, but I just don't think they would want to, pony up for someone like a Guerrero would take them. I don't think you would trade for Guerrero and just let him walk away like they did with Juan Soto there. So I just don't, and I don't think Guerrero is the type of, generational player Soto is, where you would consider, Soto, you wouldn't mind renting him for one season just because he's Juan Soto. I don't put Guerrero in Soto's class there, so I don't think you would give away like 4 or 5 great prospects and blue chips like that to bring Guerrero in there around the trade deadline. So I don't think the Yankees really had any interest in him. And if you want to look at Guerrero Jr. right now, I'm sure his numbers will get better. Right now, he's only hitting .255, and he's searching for his first home run of the season right now there. So I don't know. This is really the great timing for him, or maybe it was all the contract talks that's distracting him at the plate. And now that this is all settled, maybe he'll start hitting again. I don't know there, but this is kind of a weird move by Toronto. You usually don't see this like early in the season, like just an extension like that. You figure maybe they took care of this in spring training or during the off season. So it just seemed like they weren't sure what they really wanted to do. And as the seasons go along, maybe they don't want to get to that point where they're at the trade deadline. It's like, all right, we got to make a decision on them. We don't know. Should we are we going to sell off? Are we going to buy there? They got pieces they can sell. Let's say Max Scherzer does come back and performs well. That's someone you can maybe trade for. A team will always look to pick up a veteran pitcher like that who has postseason experience there. So they just probably didn't want to put themselves in a position. So, all right, let's sign him now. We have him. Throw our fans a bone there and see where it goes. But again, puzzling move by Toronto. I don't see why they commit with this guy. They should rebuild and start all over from scratch again. But nevertheless, that's probably why they kind of been, pretty much team non grata over the past 2 decades. And speaking of Juan Soto, again, the question is how is going to be received when he comes visit the Yankees, as the Mets visit the Yankees during the Subway Series game. And I'm sure you heard some of the hubbub. I believe it was the final Diamondbacks game there with a little smattering of F. Juan Soto. I guess it might have started there in the bleachers, those bleacher creatures, those little crazy guys there, and kind of filtered out the stadium. I don't say the whole stadium was chanting it hard there, but definitely audible if you were watching the broadcast there. And, of course, Michael Kay addressing on his show the next day and kind of criticizing, really, the Yankee fans, not for saying the F word, so to speak, that loud, but for this whole little thing that he felt very petty, the whole big brother, little brother there. And if you're going to do something like that, it almost makes you look like the little brother thing. That's, it's like very Bush League type of stuff there. So I understand his point there, but again, a couple of factors you got to look into that game itself there. At that point, again, the Yankees lost the first 2 of the Diamondbacks, but again, the offense got out to a big start in the 3rd game. So you kind of sit there, the Yankees got a big lead, you're a little bit bored there, and again, the weather was a little nicer than the previous 2 games there, like a little bit, so I don't know, you're in a good mood. So you get a couple of fans that start putting it together there, and maybe it builds a little bit there. So, but I don't think that's really any way reflective on the reception Juan Soto is going to get. He's going to get a little bit booing, a little stuff there, but I think also people are going to give him a hand and appreciation of what he did last season for the Yankees. Overall good. He said all the right things. At least during the year, he said he would like to be here, and he kept the door open for Steinbrenner to maybe make a deal or something like that. It looks like that all got kicked to the offseason there. So, look, the Steinbrenners had the opportunities, and of course, we all know the whole thing in the offseason. I still think Juan Soto, if he really wanted to be here, he could have taken the Yankees offer. It was fair enough there, but he went for the highest dollar there. Hey, that was his choice. He decided to do that there. But the fact that I don't think Juan Soto is going to get F-bombed to death or something when he comes to Yankee Stadium, no. Of course, there might be a comment or two from a loudmouth from the fan, yeah, but I think overall, a little bit boozy. I'll say 65, okay, maybe 35 booing there, but I think he'll get okay. But the fact that he's going to get F-bombed to death by the Yankee Stadium crowd, I don't see that happening at all. So that's the episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to the audio podcast version of the show, Section 420 Talkin Yankees. And if you happen to be watching right now on YouTube or on television, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. So we got to look forward to DJ LeMahieu, hopefully rejoining the team not too in the near future there. And, of course, Clark Schmidt coming back. Probably of the 2 of them, Schmidt more important right now. And really the mission for the Yankees should be to get more length and more innings out of their starting rotation right now, which has been kind of thin to start the season with, which you would kind of expect there. But, of course, whether it's Stroman, whether it's Will Warren, or whether it's Carrasco, whichever 2 of those 3 that stay into the starting rotation there have to give the Yankees more length so they're not tapping into the bullpen. But the bullpen will Look at some reinforcements. Of course, Hamilton back, and before you know it, Loizaga and Efros also coming around the corner. So that's the episode. Hope you enjoyed it. We will catch you next time.